The fluorescent lights of the convenience store flickered above me as I restocked the shelves for what felt like the 1,000th time that week. My name is Kim Bumi, and at 24 years old, I was barely surviving in Seoul. My delicate features, pale skin, chestnut hair that fell into my eyes when I was too tired to style it, often made people underestimate me. But being an Omega in this world meant I'd learned to be stronger than I looked. I glanced at my watch. 2:47 a.m. My shift would end in 13 minutes, and then I'd have exactly 4 hours to sleep before my morning shift at the cafe began. After that, I had tutoring sessions in the afternoon, followed by my evening job at the restaurant. For jobs, 7 days a week, and I was still barely making rent. My phone buzzed in my pocket as I walked home through the cold Seoul night. The streets were empty except for the occasional taxi passing by. I pulled my thin jacket tighter around myself, wishing I could afford a warmer one. As an Omega, the cold affected me more than it would an Alpha or even a Beta, but complaining wouldn't change my situation. When I finally reached my tiny studio apartment, barely bigger than a closet, I collapsed onto my mattress on the floor. Too exhausted to even change clothes, I pulled out my phone, thinking maybe I should check the job listings one more time. Perhaps tonight would be different. Perhaps tonight I'd find something that could change everything. I scrolled through the usual postings, part-time positions that paid minimum wage demanding full-time commitment for barely livable salaries. My eyes were beginning to close when one post made me sit up straight, my heart suddenly pounding. Surrogate Omega needed. Compensation, 100 million won. 100 million won. I read it again, certain I'd made a mistake. That amount of money would solve every problem in my life. I could finish my degree, pay off my debts, maybe even open the small bookshop I'd always dreamed of. My hands trembled as I clicked on the posting. The description was straightforward. A married couple seeking a surrogate Omega to carry their child. Full medical care provided. Payment upon successful delivery. Confidentiality required. I stayed awake until dawn, the posting open on my phone screen, my mind racing with possibilities and fears. Could I really do this? Carry a child for 9 months and then give it away? But the money could give me a life. A real life. As the sun rose over Seoul, painting my tiny window with orange light, I made my decision. I typed out an application email, my fingers shaking so badly I had to retype it 3 times before sending it. The moment I pressed send, everything changed. 3 days later, I found myself sitting in an upscale cafe in Gangnam, a neighborhood where I usually felt completely out of place. My hands nervously smoothed down my best shirt, which still looked shabby compared to the designer clothes worn by everyone around me. Kim Bumi? I looked up to see a couple approaching my table. The man was tall, classically handsome in the way all alphas seem to be, with perfectly styled black hair and an expensive suit. His scent, pine and something sharp, immediately identified him as an alpha. Beside him, his wife was elegant and poised, a beta with kind eyes and a warm smile. Mr. and Mrs. Kong, I said, standing quickly and bowing. Thank you for meeting with me. Please sit, Mr. Kong Jun said, his voice carrying the natural authority of an alpha. We've reviewed your application. You seem like a promising candidate. Mrs. Kong reached across the table, her hand briefly touching mine. We've been trying for years to have a child, she said softly. I can't carry one myself due to medical complications. You would be giving us the greatest gift imaginable. Over coffee they explained their situation. They wanted an heir for their family business, someone to carry on the Kong name. They seemed kind, reasonable, and genuinely desperate for a child. I found myself warming to them, imagining how I could help create their family while securing my own future. The process would involve artificial insemination, Mr. Kong explained clinically. You would remain a virgin if that's a concern. Full medical care, a stipend for living expenses during the pregnancy, and the full 100 million won upon delivery of a healthy child. I understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I want to help you. Mrs. Kang's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to us. The next few weeks were a blur of medical appointments, legal documents, and procedures. The doctors confirmed I was healthy enough to carry a child. The lawyers drew up contracts that made my head spin with legal terminology. And then, one cold morning in early spring, the insemination procedure was performed. I returned to my 4 jobs trying to pretend life was normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Every morning I wondered if it had worked. Every day I imagined what I would do with that money. 3 weeks later the test came back positive. I was pregnant. The first few months passed in a strange kind of peace. The Kangs were attentive without being overbearing. They paid for all my medical care at Seoul's best prenatal clinic, gave me a generous monthly stipend that allowed me to quit 2 of my 4 jobs, and checked in regularly to see how I was feeling. The pregnancy was harder than I'd expected. Morning sickness lasted all day, and my omega body seemed extra sensitive to every change. But I persisted, imagining that 100,000,001, imagining my future. I was 22 weeks pregnant when everything fell apart. Today we'll be able to determine the baby's primary and secondary gender, Dr. Lee said cheerfully as she prepared the ultrasound machine. The Kangs sat beside me, holding hands, their faces bright with anticipation. I watched the screen as the doctor moved the wand across my swollen belly. The baby was active, moving and kicking, very much alive inside me. Over the past months, I tried not to get attached, but feeling those movements, seeing that tiny form on the screen, it was impossible not to feel something. Everything looks healthy, Dr. Lee said. And I can confirm, you're having a girl. Mrs. Kong squeezed her husband's hand. A daughter, she whispered. And regarding her secondary gender, Dr. Lee continued, while we can't be 100% certain until puberty, all indicators suggest she'll present as an omega. The room went very still. I felt it before I saw it, the shift in atmosphere. Mr. Kang's alpha scent turned sharp and bitter. Mrs. Kang's hand dropped from his. An omega, Mr. Kong said flatly. Not an alpha. Well, we can't be completely certain, Dr. Lee began. But likely an omega, he interrupted. Not what we discussed. Not what we wanted. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Mrs. Kong wouldn't meet my eyes. We wanted an alpha heir. Someone strong to take over the family business. But she's your daughter, I said, my voice rising with panic. She's your child. She's not what we paid for, Mr. Kong said coldly. The next few days were a nightmare. The Kang's lawyer contacted me with two options. Terminate the pregnancy and receive 50,000,001 as compensation, or keep the baby and disappear, receiving nothing. I sat in my apartment, hands on my belly, feeling the baby move inside me. She would kick sometimes, especially at night, as if she knew I was awake and thinking about her. This little girl who hadn't asked to be created, who was innocent of everything except existing. How could I kill her because she was the wrong gender? The wrong secondary gender? How could I do that for money? But without the money, how would I survive? How would I raise a child that wasn't legally mine? I had no family, no support system, barely enough money to feed myself. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and I started crying. I'm sorry, I whispered to my belly. I'm so sorry they don't want you. But I do. I want you. I'll find a way. I promise. I called the Kang's lawyer the next morning. I'm keeping the baby. You understand you'll receive no compensation. I understand. I'm keeping my daughter. Returning to 4 jobs while pregnant was its own special kind of hell. My body ached constantly. The baby was growing, my belly expanding, making it harder to move, harder to work, harder to breathe. I developed anemia. My omega body, stressed beyond its limits, started breaking down. You need to rest, Dr. Park said during my checkup at the free clinic. I could no longer afford the fancy hospital the Kangs had paid for. You're malnourished. The baby isn't getting enough nutrients. I have to work, I said tiredly. I have to eat. I have to pay rent. If you keep pushing yourself like this, you could lose the baby. Or worse. But what choice did I have? I worked my shifts at the convenience store, the cafe, tutoring students who looked at my pregnant belly with barely concealed disgust, and washing dishes at the restaurant. I ate cheap ramen and rice, saved every one I could, and prayed I would make it to delivery. I was 28 weeks pregnant when it happened. It was past midnight, and I was walking home from my restaurant shift through a dark alley, a shortcut I took to save time. My feet were swollen, my back screamed with pain, and I was so tired I could barely see straight. The first cramp hit me like a knife to the gut. I stopped, gasping, one hand flying to my belly. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Another cramp, worse than the first. Pain radiated through my abdomen, sharp and terrible. I looked down and saw blood, dark and wet, spreading down my legs. Help! I screamed into the empty alley. Please? Someone help me. But there was no one. Just darkness and pain and blood. So much blood. Please, I sobbed, sliding to the ground, both hands on my belly. Please God, I can't lose her. She's everything I have. Please don't take her from me. Please. The pain was overwhelming. I screamed until my throat was raw, until I had no voice left. The world started to blur at the edges. This is it, I thought. We're both going to die here in this alley. My daughter will never be born. She'll never have a chance at life. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry I failed you. The darkness took me. But just before I lost consciousness, I heard footsteps. Felt strong arms lifting me. Smelled something, blood and gunpowder, and underneath it all, leather and rain. An alpha scent. I woke up to white walls and the steady beep of machines. Hospital. I was in a hospital. My baby, I croaked, my hand immediately going to my belly. My baby is she. The baby is fine. The voice came from beside my bed. I turned my head, every movement hurt, and found myself staring at the most beautiful and terrifying man I'd ever seen. He was tall, built like he could break someone in half without effort, with sharp features and eyes so dark they looked black. His hair was swept back from his face, and he wore an expensive black suit that did nothing to hide the danger radiating from him. An alpha, the scent was unmistakable, overwhelming even in the sterile hospital air. More than that, there was blood on his collar. Old blood, dark and dried. Who are you? I whispered. John Hanol, he said as if that should mean something. It did. Even I, isolated as I was, had heard the name. John Hanol. Seoul's most feared alpha. A mafia boss who controlled half the city's underground. A man known for his ruthlessness, his violence, his complete lack of mercy. And he had saved my life. You've been unconscious for 2 days, he continued, his voice low and measured. You had a placental abruption. The doctors managed to stop it, but you were close to losing the baby. Very close. Tears streamed down my face. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for saving us. What were you doing out there? He asked, and there was something sharp in his voice. Bleeding in an alley, putting your child's life and yours in danger. Where is your alpha? Your mate? Your family? I don't have anyone, I said quietly. I've never had anyone. You're pregnant. I know that. You're an Omega. Yes. Then how? He stopped, studying me with those dark, dangerous eyes. You've never been with an alpha. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I'm a virgin. I've never had a boyfriend. Never been with anyone. His eyes narrowed. Then explained to me how a virgin male Omega is pregnant and alone. So I told him. Everything. About the surrogacy, the Kangs, the ultrasound that revealed I was carrying an Omega girl, the choice I'd made to keep her, the struggle to survive. I told him things I'd never told anyone, words spilling out of me like water from a broken dam. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Something almost like compassion, though it seemed wrong on such a hard face. Interesting, he finally said. Those people used you and threw you away like garbage when you didn't produce what they wanted. They didn't want an Omega daughter, I said bitterly. They wanted an alpha son. An heir. Fools, Hanol said. Gender means nothing. Power is what matters, and power can belong to anyone strong enough to take it. He stood up, and I realized how truly large he was. Intimidating. A man used to violence and control. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to move into my penthouse. I'll take care of you and the baby. What? Why would you? Because something tells me those surrogacy parents will come back, and when they do, you'll need protection. Besides. He paused, and for the first time, something almost like a smile crossed his face. This is going to be fun. I can't accept that, I said weakly, even though every part of me wanted to say yes. I can't owe you. You don't owe me anything. I'm doing this because I want to. His dark eyes met mine. Do you want your daughter to survive, Kim Bumi? Do you want to survive? Yes, I whispered. Then stop arguing and accept my help. Hanol's penthouse was like something from a different world. All floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, modern furniture that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life, and space. So much space. This is your room, Hanol said, opening a door to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire previous apartment. The bathroom is through there. I've had the kitchen stocked with food safe for pregnancy. There's a doctor on call 24 hours. I don't understand, I said, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? He looked at me for a long moment. I'm not a good man, Kim Bumi. I've killed people. I've done terrible things. But even I have limits. And watching an Omega bleed out in an alley because society decided his baby girl wasn't valuable enough. He shook his head. That crosses even my limits. Over the following weeks, I discovered that John Hanol was a man of contradictions. He would leave in the evening wearing a perfectly tailored suit and return in the early morning hours with blood on his knuckles. But he also made sure I had 3 nutritious meals a day, attended every doctor's appointment, and checked on me constantly. The baby is doing better, Dr. Kim reported during a home visit. Her growth is back on track. The vitamins and proper nutrition are working. Good, Hanol said from where he stood by the window. Make sure she has everything she needs. One evening about a month after I'd moved in, I found Hanol on the penthouse balcony, looking out over the city. I'd been craving fresh air and I thought he might have been asleep. Can't rest? He asked without turning around. The baby keeps kicking, I said, moving to stand beside him. I think she's as restless as I am. May I? He gestured toward my belly. I nodded, surprised. He placed one large hand on my swollen stomach and almost immediately, the baby kicked directly into his palm. His eyes widened slightly. She's strong, he murmured. She's a fighter, I agreed. Like her, like me I guess. Tell me about yourself, Hanul said suddenly. Not about the pregnancy. About you. Who is Kim Bumi when he's not being a surrogate? So I told him. About growing up in an orphanage, about presenting as an Omega at 15 and suddenly being treated differently, about my dreams of opening a bookshop someday, about loving old poetry and rainy days and the smell of coffee in the morning. He listened without interrupting, his hand still on my belly, feeling the baby move. You deserve better than what life has given you, he said quietly. Maybe this is better, I replied. Maybe everything happened exactly as it needed to for me to end up here. Safe. With her safe too. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. It wasn't just compassion. It was something deeper, something that made my Omega instincts sit up and take notice. Bumi, he said, my name sounding different in his deep voice. I need to tell you something. What? I'm going to adopt your daughter. Legally. She'll be mine in the eyes of the law, which means she'll have my protection, my name, my resources. But, and when you're ready, he continued, after the baby is born and you've recovered, I want to marry you. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Marry me? I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you, he said, and for the first time since I'd met him, John Hanul looked vulnerable. You're brave and kind and you chose your child over money, over safety, over everything. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. You barely know me, I whispered. I know enough. I know that I want to build a life with you. I know that I want to be a father to your daughter. I know that when I think about the future, I see you in it. He cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing across my cheek. I'm not asking you to love me. Not yet. But maybe you could try? The baby kicked again, hard as if she was voting yes. Okay, I whispered. Okay, let's try. He kissed me then, gentle and careful, like I was something precious. It was my first kiss and it tasted like possibility. The wedding was small, just Hanul's parents and a few trusted associates. His mother cried when she met me, holding my face in her hands. You've made my son human again, she said. Thank you for giving us our family back. Hanul's father, equally intimidating but with kind eyes, clasped my shoulder. Welcome to the family, Bumi. That grandchild you're carrying is already deeply loved. The marriage felt surreal. I, Kim Bumi, who had been nobody, was now married to Seoul's most powerful alpha. I wore a simple white hanbok, my belly prominent at 7 months pregnant, and felt like I was in a dream. You're beautiful, Hanul whispered as we stood together after the brief ceremony. I'm huge, I corrected, but I was smiling. You're carrying our daughter. That makes you the most beautiful person in the world. Our daughter. Not my daughter anymore. Ours. That night, in the penthouse that was now officially my home, Hanul was gentle with me in a way I hadn't expected from such a dangerous man. I want you, he said, his hands tracing my sides carefully. But only if you want this too. I do, I whispered. I want you. He undressed me slowly, reverently, his eyes dark with desire but also with something softer. When he looked at my pregnant body, there was no disgust, no judgment, only want. You're perfect, he murmured, kissing down my neck, across my collarbone, down to my chest. His hands explored every inch of me, learning what made me gasp, what made me moan. When his mouth closed around my nipple, sensitive from the pregnancy, I cried out, my hands fisting in his hair. Hanul, I whimpered. Please. Tell me what you need, he said against my skin. You. I need you. He prepared me carefully, his fingers stretching me slowly while he kissed me breathless. I'd never been touched like this, never imagined it could feel this good. When he finally pressed inside me, his cucumber hard and hot, I gasped at the fullness, the stretch, the overwhelming sensation of being joined with my alpha. Okay? He asked, frozen above me, every muscle taut with the effort of staying still. Yes, I breathed. Yes, move. Please move. He did, slowly at first, careful of my pregnant belly, but gradually building speed as I urged him on. It was intense and overwhelming and absolutely perfect. I felt connected to him in a way I'd never felt connected to anyone. Bumi, he groaned, his control starting to slip. You feel incredible. Harder, I begged, my nails scratching down his back. I won't break. He gave me what I wanted, his movements becoming more powerful, more demanding. I met him thrust for thrust, the pleasure building higher and higher until I shattered, crying out his name as my body clenched around him. He followed moments later, his own release powerful as he buried his face in my neck, breathing in my Omega scent. Afterward, he held me carefully, his hand resting on my belly where our daughter, because she was ours now, kicked contentedly. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," he replied. "Both of you. Always." At 39 weeks, my water broke at 3 in the morning. "Hanol," I gasped, shaking his shoulder. "Hanol, it's time." He was awake instantly, moving with the efficiency of someone used to crisis situations. Within minutes, we were in his car, speeding toward the hospital. "Breathe," he said, holding my hand as another contraction hit. "Just breathe, baby." "I'm scared," I admitted. "I know. But you're the strongest person I know. You can do this." Labor was long and exhausting. 14 hours of contractions, of pain, of wondering if I had the strength to continue. But Hanol stayed with me the entire time, holding my hand, whispering encouragement, being my anchor. "One more push," Dr. Kim said. "Come on, Bumi, one more." I pushed with everything I had left, screaming with the effort, and then a baby's cry filled the room. "It's a girl," Dr. Kim announced, though we already knew. A beautiful, healthy girl. They placed her on my chest, this tiny, perfect creature with a scrunched face and chestnut hair like mine. She opened her eyes, dark like Hanol's, and looked right at me. "Hi, baby," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm your daddy." Hanol leaned over us both, his own eyes wet. "She's perfect," he said hoarsely. "She's absolutely perfect. What should we name her?" I asked. "John Hannah," he said immediately. "If that's okay with you. It means one, or first, our first child, the first day of our real family." "John Hannah," I repeated, smiling down at my daughter. "It's perfect. Daddy, Papa, look what I made." Hannah ran toward us across the garden of our home, her chestnut hair flying behind her, holding up a painting. At 5 years old, she was bright, confident, and absolutely fearless. An Omega, yes, but one who'd been raised to know her worth had nothing to do with her designation. "It's beautiful, princess," Hanol said, scooping her up and spinning her around, making her giggle. I watched them together, my heart full. The past 5 years had been everything. Hanol had been true to his word, adopting Hannah legally, loving her as his own, protecting us both with a fierceness that still took my breath away. His parents doted on Hannah, spoiling her endlessly. His mother liked to joke that Hannah had accomplished what no one else could, making John Hanol soft. "Not soft," Hanol would protest. "Just selective about who deserves my gentleness." Life was good. Better than good. I'd even opened my bookshop, a cozy little place that Hanol had insisted on funding, though I ran it myself. It was everything I'd dreamed of. But today that peace was about to be shattered. I was at the bookshop when Hanol called. "They're back," he said without preamble. "The Kangs. They're trying to claim parental rights to Hannah." My blood ran cold. "What?" "They found out she's been raised in wealth, with resources. Suddenly they want their daughter back." His voice was dark with rage. "They're claiming you violated the contract by keeping her. But the adoption. They're fighting it. They have lawyers, money. They think they can win." I looked over at where Hannah was playing in the children's section of my bookshop, happily oblivious to the dangers circling our family. "What do we do?" I asked. "We fight," Hanol said simply. "And when I fight, Bumi, I don't lose." The Kangs had no idea who they were dealing with. They thought they were fighting a simple custody battle. They didn't realize they'd just declared war on Seoul's most dangerous alpha. "Mr. and Mrs. Kong," Hanol said pleasantly when we met with them and their lawyer. We were in a conference room at Hanol's company, legitimate business on the surface, though everyone knew what lay beneath. "I understand you think you have a claim to my daughter." "Your daughter?" Mr. Kong scoffed. "That child was created with my genetic material. She's legally mine." "Actually," Hanol's lawyer said, sliding papers across the table, "she's not. You terminated all parental rights when you gave Kim Bumi, now John Bumi, the option to keep the child with no compensation. That was a legal abandonment. My client then legally adopted the child. She's a John now. That adoption was fraudulent," the Kang's lawyer argued. "Our clients weren't properly notified." "Because they told my husband to disappear," Hanol interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. "They told a pregnant Omega to vanish with a child they didn't want. They have no right to her now." "We'll see what the courts say," Mr. Kong said smugly. Hanol smiled and it was terrifying. "Yes, let's see." Over the next few weeks, the Kangs discovered that fighting John Hanol was very different from fighting a normal custody case. Their business partners suddenly dropped them. Their investors pulled out. Their company's accounts were mysteriously frozen pending investigations into tax fraud, investigations that Hanol's people had meticulously documented evidence for. "This is illegal." Mrs. Kong shrieked during one court appearance. He's using his criminal connections to destroy us. I'm using legal channels to expose your crimes, Hanul corrected calmly. There's a difference. But the worst came when evidence surfaced of Mr. Kang's involvement in illegal surrogacy operations, including several cases where Omega surrogates had been coerced or deceived. Women came forward with stories of being used and discarded just like I had been. You used vulnerable Omegas-like products, Hanul said during the final court hearing, his voice ringing with righteous anger. You didn't want my daughter because she was an Omega, because you see Omegas as less than. Well, that Omega daughter you rejected is brilliant, kind, and loved. And you'll never get near her again. The judge agreed. The Kang's parental rights case was dismissed. Moreover, they were charged with multiple crimes related to their surrogacy operations. They'd lost everything, their business, their reputation, their freedom. You destroyed them, I said to Hanul that night as we lay in bed. I protected our family, he corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He turned to face me, his expression serious. I would burn the world for you and Hannah. I would destroy anyone who threatened you. That's what it means to be your mate, your husband, your alpha. Protection without mercy. I kissed him, deep and passionate, pouring 5 years of love and gratitude into it. Thank you, I whispered against his lips. Always, he replied. Life returned to normal, or what passed for normal in the John household. Hannah thrived in school, showing an early aptitude for both art and mathematics. She was popular with the other children, an Omega who led rather than followed, who defended others who were picked on. She gets that from you, Hanul said one evening as we watched her play. And the scary intensity when someone threatens her friends? I teased. That's all you. We'd been talking about having another child. Now that Hannah was older, now that I wasn't constantly terrified about survival, the idea of expanding our family felt right. Are you sure? Hanul asked. Pregnancy was hard on you before. That was different, I said. I was alone, malnourished, working myself to death. Now I have you. I have your family. I have everything I need to have a healthy pregnancy. Then let's make another baby, he murmured, pulling me close. This time, when we made love, it was with the specific intention of creating life. Hanul was tender but passionate, his hands worshipping every inch of my body. I love you, he whispered as he moved inside me, our bodies joined in the most intimate way. I love you so much. I love you too, I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders as pleasure built. Fill me, Alpha. Give me another child. He groaned at my words, his movements becoming more powerful, more purposeful. When he reached between us to stroke my cucumber, I shattered, crying out as my body clenched around him. He followed immediately, his release hot and deep inside me. Afterward, he held me close, his hand splayed across my flat stomach. I hope it worked, he murmured. It will, I said with certainty. I can feel it. I was right. 6 weeks later, the test was positive. We were going to have another baby. 2 years later, I stood in our garden, watching Hanul push Hannah on the swing while our son, John Hajuan, 18 months old and already showing signs of being an alpha like his father, played in the sandbox. My bookshop was thriving. Hanul's businesses, both legitimate and otherwise, were successful. His parents visited twice a week, spoiling their grandchildren endlessly. We had friends, family, a home filled with love and laughter. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about that version of Kim Bumi who'd been bleeding in an alley, certain he was going to die. That frightened Omega who'd had nothing and no one. If I could go back and tell him that everything would be okay, that he'd find love and family and safety, would he believe me? Probably not. But that was okay. Because that scared boy had become this happy man, this loved husband, this proud father. The journey had been hard, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. Daddy? Hannah called. Come push me higher. Papa's with you, sweetheart, I called back. I want you both. Hanul looked over at me, his expression soft in the way it only ever was with family. You heard the princess, he said. She wants both her daddies. I walked over, Hajuan toddling after me, and joined my family. Hanul pulled me close with one arm while continuing to push Hannah's swing with the other. Hajuan wrapped his small arms around my leg. I love you all so much, I whispered. We love you too, Hannah declared. We're the best family ever. She was right. Against all odds, despite everything that had tried to destroy us, we'd built something beautiful. We'd built a family based on love, not designation. On choice, not obligation. I'd started with nothing. No family, no money, no hope. I'd been used and discarded, left to die in an alley with my unwanted baby. But that baby had saved me just as much as I'd saved her. And the monster who'd found us bleeding in the dark had turned out to be our salvation. Now I had everything. A husband who loved me fiercely, children who brought joy to every moment, a life I'd never dared to dream of. The Omega who'd been deemed worthless because of his designation had found a family that cherished him. The daughter who'd been rejected for being an Omega girl had become the beloved princess of Soul's most powerful family. And the ruthless Alpha who'd never known softness had learned to be gentle. We were proof that love could triumph over prejudice, that family was about choice and commitment, not biology, and that sometimes the most unexpected paths led to the most beautiful destinations. As the sun set over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I held my family close and knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. After tucking both children into bed, Hannah with her favorite storybook and Hajuan with his stuffed bear, Hanol and I finally had a moment alone. The penthouse was quiet except for the soft sound of the city below. I found Hanol on our bedroom balcony, looking out over Seoul just like that first night when everything between us had begun to shift into something more. Thinking about something? I asked, sliding my arms around his waist from behind. He turned in my embrace, his dark eyes soft in the moonlight. Thinking about how lucky I am, he said simply. 7 years ago I was a man without a heart. Now I have everything. We both do, I whispered. He cupped my face gently, his thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. You're beautiful, Bomi. More beautiful now than the day I met you. I'm older, more tired, definitely have more gray hairs. He silenced me with a kiss, deep and passionate, tasting of promise and desire. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. Bedroom, he murmured. Now. I laughed, letting him lead me inside. He closed the door behind us, ensuring the lock was secure. We'd learned that lesson after Hannah had walked in once, leading to a very interesting conversation about privacy. Anol's hands found the hem of my shirt, slowly lifting it over my head. His eyes traced over my body with the same reverence he'd shown 7 years ago, despite all the changes time and 2 pregnancies had brought. Perfect, he whispered, pressing kisses across my collarbone. Every part of you is perfect. Hanol, I breathed as his mouth traveled lower, across my chest, pausing to lavish attention on sensitive areas that made me gasp. His hands worked at my pants, sliding them down until I stood before him in just my underwear. I could see his desire evident through his own clothing, could smell the heady scent of alpha arousal mixing with my omega response. Your turn, I said, my voice husky with want. I undressed him slowly, revealing the powerful body beneath, scarred from his dangerous life but beautiful to me. When I traced my fingers over an old scar on his shoulder, he shivered. You make me feel things I never thought possible, he admitted quietly. We moved to the bed together, a tangle of limbs and heated skin. Hanol positioned himself above me, his weight comforting and arousing all at once. I need you, I whispered, pulling him closer. I always need you. I'm yours, he replied, his hand moving between us to prepare me carefully, thoroughly, ensuring I was ready for him. The sensation of his fingers stretching me, the intimacy of being touched so carefully by my alpha, made pleasure course through my entire body. I arched into his touch, wordlessly begging for more. Patience, love, he murmured, though I could hear the strain in his own voice. I want this to be good for you. It's always good with you, I gasped as he added another finger, the fullness making me whimper with need. When he finally withdrew his hand and positioned himself at my entrance, we locked eyes. There was something profound in that moment. 7 years of love, of partnership, of building a life together. He pressed forward slowly, his cucumber thick and hot as it filled me inch by inch. The stretch was intense, overwhelming in the best way. My body yielded to him, welcoming him home. Bumi, he groaned, his control visibly fraying. You feel incredible. Every single time. Move, I urged, wrapping my legs around his waist. Please, Hanol, I need you to move. He did, pulling almost all the way out before sliding back in, establishing a rhythm that was both tender and powerful. Each thrust sent waves of pleasure through me, building higher and higher. His hand found mine, our fingers interlocking as our bodies moved together in perfect synchronization. This was more than just physical pleasure, it was connection, communication, love expressed through touch. Faster, I begged, my free hand clutching at his shoulder. Harder, Alpha, please. He gave me what I needed, his movements becoming more demanding, more powerful. The sound of our bodies joining filled the room, mixing with our gasps and moans of pleasure. Touch yourself, he commanded, his voice rough with desire. I want to watch you fall apart. My hand moved between us, wrapping around my own cucumber, stroking in time with his thrusts. The dual sensation, his powerful movements inside me and my own hand on myself, was almost too much to bear. That's it, he groaned, watching me with dark, heated eyes. So beautiful like this, so perfect for me. The praise sent shivers through me. My Omega nature responded to his Alpha approval, my body tightening around him as pleasure coiled tighter and tighter in my core. "Hanul," I gasped, "I'm close, I'm so close." "Come for me," he commanded, his voice dropping into that Alpha register that made my instincts sing. "Let go, Bumi. I've got you." That was all it took. Pleasure exploded through me like lightning, my body clenching rhythmically around him as I cried out his name. My release spilled over my hand and across my stomach, marking me with the evidence of my pleasure. Hanul followed moments later, his own release powerful as he buried himself deep inside me. His face was transformed in that moment, vulnerable and open and utterly beautiful. He collapsed beside me carefully, immediately pulling me into his arms. We lay there catching our breath, our bodies still humming with aftershocks of pleasure. "I love you," he whispered into my hair. "More than I can ever express with words." "I love you too," I replied, snuggling closer to his warmth. "Thank you for saving me all those years ago." "You saved me too," he said seriously. "You gave me a reason to be more than just a monster. You gave me a family, purpose, love. You're my everything, Kim Bumi." "John Bumi now," I corrected with a smile. "John Bumi," he agreed, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "My husband, my love, my home." We lay together in comfortable silence, the sounds of soul continuing outside our window. Somewhere down the hall, our children slept peacefully, safe and loved. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, new joys. But tonight, in this moment, wrapped in my Alpha's arms after making love, I felt complete. The scared Omega who'd thought he would die alone in an alley had found his fairy tale ending. Not because a prince had rescued him, but because two broken people had found each other and chosen to build something beautiful together. And that, I thought as sleep began to claim me, was the truest kind of love story there was.